Yeah, thanks, ma'am. So, hi, everyone. So, first of all, I'd like to welcome you, Professor V Rao, and I'm really grateful that you accepted our invitation to giving a talk. And before starting the talk, I would like to introduce you to the audience. So, because you are a very big name and you don't need a formal introduction, but still, so Professor V Rao is the currently the BITS Pilani Vice Chancellor, and prior to that, he worked as the IT Delhi director, and even before that, he has been a part of the Ministry of Education and Government of India, and a part of so many different organizations. So he's someone. Sorry. Sorry, yeah. So I would like to say that sir is one of the persons who knows when and where to put the hammer in the education system to bring best out of it. And if we talk about him, so he has completed his formal education from government schools in Telangana, and after that he did his BTech from Kakatiya University, and thereafter he did his MTech and then PhD from Munich, Germany. I would like to say that like IIT Bombay is like the home of Sir, because he did his MTech from IIT Bombay, and after that he started a teaching career from IIT Bombay. Then thereafter he served more than 18 years of time, and in that journey only he became in that journey only he became so founded in the education system that thereafter he moved to IIT Delhi and served as the director of there. And in that journey, he became the founder of two of the startups known as the Nanosniff and the Soil Sensors. And he has received Santi Swarup Bhatnagar Award, which is one of the top awards in the field of education system, and more than 450 research papers and 50 patents, out of which 15 have been commercialized in the real world. So this is one of the introduction of you, of Sir. And so why are we sitting here and this talk is all about? So mostly we know that like in India and in abroad also, there is a hype nowadays in India only that everybody wants to go abroad for the higher educations. And somewhere we are feeling that our drainage, we can have a brain drainage in India. So therefore, Sir will be mainly talking about when and why to go for the higher education, and how, because he has been an entrepreneur, so he will be giving us a little bit idea how to decide that a particular idea has the potential to go for a startup, and shall we take it to the higher heights or not. And also one more thing that I would like to point here is that nowadays a trend has been seen in the engineering colleges that students at the time of their undergrads, everyone, like majority of them wants to go for an entrepreneur on a startup journey. So we should really like to know, and everybody should have know that what is the minimum education that a student should first gain before planning for entrepreneur journey, and what should be taken to the startup, like it does each and every idea has the potential to go for a startup or not. So these are few of the points about which Sir will be talking about today. And one more last slide, that is like who we are and why are we sitting here today. So we are a private limited company working at the intersection of research, trying to work at the intersection of research, industry, and academia. So we are trying to build a system, ecosystem, where we can bring all these three under the same umbrella, so that the students can get trained in the field of bioinformatics, data sciences, and they will be ready to either move to the research or to the industry. And to increase the awareness, we try to invite few of the experts once or twice a month to aware the youth and the students from their experiences of the success and the failures. And therefore, there are few of the talks that we have conducted in the past. And today we have Dr. Professor V Rao to enlighten us from his experiences of success and the failure, and to talk about few of his experience. So over to you, Dr. Rao. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Hello, Anand. You are able to hear me? Is everything
Yes,
fine?
sir, you are completely audible. Thanks.
Okay. So let me share my presentation.
So,
So can you see my presentation now?
yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay. It's also in the full screen mode.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
That's
Yes,
good.
sir.
Yeah. So I will talk about three aspects. As you have asked me, maybe I will take about 20-25 minutes to explain, research, entrepreneurship kind of aspects, and then I will be happy to take questions. I think since there are many students, there's a lot of echo coming in. I don't know where it is.
Oh, sorry, sir. Like,
Yeah, so I will take questions afterwards from all of you, and then we can see, we can discuss a few things. First of all, my apologies for the delay and all that. Today I'm traveling and I just reached 5 minutes ago, so I had to just set up this computer and connect to the internet, so which took a bit of time. So let's look at what is engineering. And engineering, we usually think it's civil engineering, mechanical engineering, and all that. And today, whatever engineering you do, at the end of the day, many take up jobs in IT because that's the only place where there are jobs available, IT and CS kind of departments. And that's the reason why, every institution wants to offer only IT and CSC programs, while students also are all looking forward to, working in those companies which offer jobs. And as a result, everything is all moving towards that IT and CSC. The core branches like mechanical, electrical engineering, textiles, or civil engineering, all of them are being left out now, and many institutions are finding it difficult to even keep these programs running. I mean, so why has this situation arisen, and what exactly is the reason why we are, facing this sort of a crisis in the country today? Uh, so, what will be the repercussions of that? I mean, if everybody only does IT and CSC, who will execute the civil infrastructure projects, who will run these big mechanical kind of things, and so I think it's not going to work like this. And at some point I would believe that while all this craze for CSC and IT exists today, I think there will be demand for other disciplines too. I think there was a time when civil was the most popular kind of a branch, then electronics was the most popular kind of a branch. Now it's CSC which is the most popular branch, and I'm sure in the future there will be the time for other branches too. So that time will come. But what exactly is engineering? I think if you keep aside all these disciplines and all that, which have been created basically from the administration point of view, you need to put people into different disciplines. When you give degree, you have to assign some branch and all that. I think that's the only reason all these branches have come about. But engineering is not about civil. Engineering is not about mechanical or any other thing. Engineering is all about developing optimal and sustainable solutions to society's problems. So engineering is all about solving problems. That's what engineering is. And what the engineering discipline teaches you is essentially that, after 4 years of engineering, you tend to, think very differently. If a problem is given to you, you would try to, you would know how to solve that problem. And you would know how to, in a way, come up with a solution to that problem, how to divide that problem into different sections, how to address the problem, where to start, how to go about it. I think that is the kind of a mindset you develop for solving problems. And that's why you would have seen a civil servant, somebody who has become an IAS officer. If the person has let's say engineering background, and the person would work in a certain way, would think in a certain way, would solve problems in a certain way, as compared to somebody who has actually joined civil services, maybe from humanities or arts kind of a background. So because it's all about that thinking mindset, way to approach a problem. These are the things that engineering discipline develops, and these are the things that we essentially develop in the students, that ability to solve problems. And that is what engineering is all about. So, and the problems also don't have solution. When you say engineering is all about solving problems, problems don't come with a disciplinary tag. If you need to solve, let us say, the pollution problem, I mean, what discipline does it fall under? If you want to help improve the agriculture in the country, like productivity of agriculture in the country, what discipline does it fall under? You would have mechanical to civil to agricultural scientists to chemists to electrical engineers. Everybody is required when it comes to solving any of these kind of problems. So therefore, when anytime you put problem first, right, you need a multidisciplinary approach to solve the problem. With only one disciplinary kind of a background, you may be able to address one section of the problem, but you won't be able to come up with a complete solution to that problem. And that will always require a multidisciplinary kind of an approach. So therefore, when you are doing engineering, or when you are, for that matter, if you want to become an entrepreneur, what is important is that entrepreneurial mindset, right? That engineering kind of a mindset, which is all about solving problems. So therefore, that is what is important at the end of the day. And if you are solving problems, you create enterprises. Those enterprises will
Look, by the time Professor Rao joins in, do you want to actually interact with the people? Like Professor Rao just mentioned that, these days problems doesn't come with a specific discipline. The same thing we are, observing now, that it was, I mean, his internet connection, he has already attended the earlier meeting. There was no issue.
Right,
Now
ma'am.
what's happened? Uh, so we need to be little. Do you want to interact with the participants by the time Professor Rao joins in?
Yes, sure. Guys, if any of you want to ask anything, then you can. If anybody of you have any questions or anything in mind. So, okay, before that, we'll talk about a little bit about our company or something. That is who we are and what we do.
Sir,
Yeah, Bushra, go ahead.
I have one question. Sir,
Yes, sure, go ahead.
sir, I am a master's graduate in biochemistry. So we know,
Just a minute, Bushra, just a minute.
yes,
Yeah, please go ahead.
so I am a master's graduate in biochemistry and I'm studying to do PhD. So after masters and then doing anything in life science, you have two horizons. One, you go in the industries, or you go in PhD and then you go into academic field or whatever. So which is a better option? Because at this stage, because industries, the jobs of industries are quite fascinating as well. But and PhD has its own perks. Then my another question is, nowadays the PhDs are being extended like from 5 to 6 years like that. So everybody does not have that time constraint to do the PhD in those particular years. So doing PhD from India or doing PhD from abroad, which is a better option? And then
Okay, fine.
if and if
Fine. So
suppose
let me
because
answer.
जी sir.
Fine. So let me answer your second question first. So that is, you asked doing a PhD from India or doing a PhD from abroad is a better option. So of course, if you are getting a PhD from world's top universities, then definitely going abroad is a good option. Like if you are getting university like Stanford, Harvard, or Penn University, like if you're getting a Penn State University or some good university across the world, which comes under at a top ranking, then definitely going abroad is a good option. But if you are getting a very normal university abroad, then it's a better option to stay in India and do a PhD from India. The reason behind that is even after completing a PhD, you have to think for and move to either to industries or to the academia. So if you will plan to go for the academia, after PhD, when you come back to India, you will lack one particular point that is known as the networking. Okay, and networking plays one of the key important point which a student gets to make in the field during their PhDs. During PhD, you get a chance to move to the different conferences, different workshops, build good connections. I met Dr. Rao only in one of the conference which was organized at IIIT Delhi. So I met Professor Rao at a conference. Okay, then today we have very good connections in India. So when so that is the most important point that you will lack if you will go for the PhD from abroad. Okay. Second point, so if you are getting a very top university from abroad, then obviously you should go abroad without any doubt. But if you are getting a very normal universities, which is not comes under the top 100 or something, then doing a PhD from India is a better option. The first point, shall we go for the industry or to the academia? So because I'm also a PhD scholar only, so I'm not a best person to answer that. But yes, I would like to say that because somewhere there very tough competition in the industries for the jobs, because what is happening is that there is a very upper cap for the number of positions in industries, but the number of supply is very high, because we are having more than 10,000 graduates in the field of life sciences we are having each year. But if you look at the number of companies offering the job positions, very limited. Okay, so for each position a very large number of the candidates comes, and if you will plan to apply for a job, then you will find that the BSc student will also be applying, master will also be applying, and PhD also will be applying, because of somewhere the constraint in the resources and the job lack of the job opportunity that we are having in Indian settings. Okay, so obviously when industries will get the option to hire a PhD, they will always prefer a PhD rather than a MSc student. Okay, and because of this tough competition, there is also a salary constraint. That is like life science students are not able to get very good salaries after MSc. Okay, so if you are someone who plan to build a career in the field of research, or want to like passionate about money, then PhD will be a better option, because after PhD you will have a very large number of the opportunities that will open to you. After masters, industry is not going to recognize you and give you better salaries and all. Okay, and the second point is like industries always prefer MTech, like technical degree courses, as compared to MScs. Okay, they are my personal views. I'm not generalizing these things. So okay, but these are things that I have experienced in the past. Industries give preferences to the MTech degrees as compared to the MScs. Okay, so you will also have option to
Can
do
I add? Can I add something to what
definitely, ma'am. Sure.
you said?
Sure.
So, see, I completely agree with the point which you just raised, and the mentioned also that we are supposed to have, if we are getting some good opportunities abroad, we should go ahead and try to grab it. However, I would say, as you have rightly mentioned, that we have a lot of skill set, or maybe people who are PhDs, masters, bachelors, they are available and number of jobs are less. That's the only reason these days, Professor Rao specifically, and in fact our Prime Minister also, they do encourage people to be more creative. We are supposed to create work for us, as well as something which is actually helpful for the society and for the people also. So see, these days I am like not fully agree with this thing that we should go for the masters abroad, or maybe PhD abroad. We have very good options, IITs, BITS Pilani. These are some of the good institutes wherein we can pursue PhD, and then we are supposed to widen our horizon. We need to look, or think beyond the normal things, so that we can actually identify the creations for ourselves. Yes, Bushra, I think you want to say something.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry to interrupt you, ma'am. And both of you, it was very clearing thoughts because I was confused. And one more thing I wanted to ask, like suppose I have taken a break from my after my masters, I have taken a break of 1 year to pursue PhD. So in this break, if I'm trying to enhance my skill set, or I'm trying to do any project, or if I'm trying to do anything online, like learning any language, so this gap here, will it affect my PhD when I go for the interviews, or when I go, because people will ask you, na, ki, why haven't you joined the PhD immediately? So will this gap matter?
So if I will have to answer, like definitely the gap year matters. Okay, so undoubtedly gap year matters, and a lot of research institutes and even the companies sees that like what you did and how did you utilize your gap year. Okay, fine. So we can have the question answer later.
Yeah.
So yeah, sir is back.
There is some problem here. So internet, I'm in IIT Tirupati,
Okay,
and
sir.
this is so far away from Tirupati, and hardly any communication is working here. But I will share again. I will try one more.
Sure, sir.
Give me a
You can continue.
Yeah. So can you see my presentation now?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. So I was telling you that there are so many institutions, and there is a lot of people, a lot of students doing research in the country. And what is therefore important is to create opportunities for students studying disciplines which are other than IT, CSE, and everything. But how do we do that? That's what I'm going to address as part of my presentation. So India is actually doing a lot of research. So the India, if you look at, we are ranked third in the world for research, and only behind US and China. And also we are one of the fastest growing countries when it comes to generating knowledge, new knowledge, right? Our problem therefore is not the generation of new knowledge. Our problem is, converting that knowledge into wealth. That is where we currently lag behind the Western countries. And, though we are not spending enough money, but for whatever money that is provided by agencies, we actually generate a lot of research. Per dollar spent, for example, India produces more knowledge per dollar terms than any other country in the world. So again, that's something that credit goes to the Indian researchers. And we are among the top 10 for all research metrics, in all the research metrics now. But our biggest challenge is we are 40th for innovation. Innovation is again translating that knowledge into wealth. So there we are very poor. But in other research metrics like number of papers or citations or quality, even in all of those terms, we are among the top 10 countries in the world. And from just the volume of research produced from India, we are actually third in the world right now. So I think these are all good metrics we should be very proud about. But the fact is that since we are not able to convert that knowledge into wealth or that knowledge into products, how does wealth get generated out of knowledge? You use that knowledge to solve a problem, right? And then people pay for that solution, right? I think that's how you create new companies, new enterprises, and new ways of doing things. And that is when the knowledge becomes wealth, and then it creates more jobs. And then students will find jobs in all these other sectors too. So, but unfortunately, that translation of research is not happening effectively in the country. So we need to focus on impact and translation of knowledge into wealth. I think that is a problem that exists in the country. And this is the place where, for example, startups can play a very big role. And that is what one is saying, how to actually go about it and do that. And if you actually look at the different one of the challenges also that exists in the country today is we are not, publishing or filing enough patents. While we are writing a lot of papers, we are not protecting our ideas through patents. So that's one thing. If you want to ever become an entrepreneur, you have to first protect your idea, particularly in technology areas. For example, if you look at India, I've taken the example of nanotechnology, which is one of my areas of research. India in 2019 wrote about 15,000 papers in nanotechnology, and we are ranked third in the world in terms of publications. But look at how many patents we filed, just 54 patents, right? And look at US during the same year, wrote about 24,000 papers, ranked second in the world, but they have filed close to 5,000 patents out of that research. Right. So what it essentially means, therefore, is for every 5 papers written in the US, they file a patent. They protect an idea that exists in those papers. In India, for every 300 papers, we are generating one idea which is patented. So I think that is the distinction between the knowledge becoming wealth in the places like US and knowledge not becoming wealth in the place like India. Because when we are not even protecting the idea, when we write papers and let these ideas be known to the world, anybody can make use of that idea, solve a problem, and sell that technology back to us. That's exactly what is happening right now. And that is a big challenge that we are facing today. Whereas in the US now, whatever new ideas come, they protect those ideas, and then they go ahead and develop a solution to that problem, and then they sell it to the entire world. And that's the reason why you look at any new age companies, right? Apple, Tesla, all these companies have come about in the last 20 years. They did not even exist before that, but they basically captured an idea, and then they made a product out of it. Now the entire world is actually buying those products, and that is what that needs to happen in the country. Another thing, because our institutions are working in silos, because we are not working with each other as much as we should do, because we have not brought all these disciplines together, sometimes we fail to capitalize on these ideas, and sometimes we fail to generate, any tangible solution to any of the problems that we are facing. So again, it comes down to, people working together, the multidisciplinary kind of an approach, which is very important for any idea to become a product. Right. So and then again coming to how do you pick ideas? So how do you do research? Right. I told you that we are doing very high quality research. I told you that of course our problem is translating that research or knowledge into wealth. But when it comes to research, the fundamental problem that lies is how does knowledge become wealth? Knowledge becomes wealth when that knowledge has a relevance to society. Right. You may be working on an area or on a disease, which does it is not even prevalent in India. And then, but if you have done a lot of research on the disease because you were working in the US on that problem, you came back to India, and then you found that problem very fascinating. But there are not enough people struggling with that problem or suffering from that problem. But you worked on that problem because that's the one thing which you learned in the US. And when you came back, that was a problem that you came with. but you keep on working on that area. You can publish lots of papers, but if you want to solve that problem, or if in India, first of all, there is no market for that. There are not enough people, where you can sell that solution. And in those kind of things, what is essentially, you are a good researcher, right? But your problem doesn't have much relevance to the society, right? So that is what oftentimes is the problem with the research in India. Now, our main focus of research in India is to publish papers, and is not to develop any solution to a problem. And if that is the motive, then your entire research will go on a trajectory which may not even be useful to the society. And then there is a huge disconnect between what problems you are working on and what the society actually requires, what the industry actually requires. And that is exactly the situation right now we are in the country. Now, so therefore, the problem comes down to, how do you choose research problems in academia? When you join an institute for a PhD program, right, even a master's program where you do, where you spend substantial amount of time on a thesis, right? In all of these cases, you essentially, most of the problems in India are picked from the library. Right? When there are students, the first thing a faculty member will say is, go to library, look for a problem, read some papers, and after reading all those papers, find out what the gaps are and where you can publish more papers. And then the student does a literature review. Almost all the thesis start with a literature review chapter, and out of that literature review will emerge a kind of a problem statement, and that problem statement is what the student works on, writes a few more chapters, right, and then submits the thesis and gets a PhD. And this student now, when he or she becomes a faculty member, exactly the same process is followed. Again, sends his or her students to the library, and then the student picks a problem, reads 100 papers, picks a problem, defines a problem statement, publishes a few more papers, and again those papers, that whole cycle continues right now. So we need to, at some point, break this cycle of picking problems from library. Right? In India, depending based on my survey, I can tell you that depending on which institution students go to, 70 to 100% of problems are actually originating from the library. When they originate from library, they also go back to library. They never see the light of the day. Society, wouldn't even know what exactly they are working on. And this is, the kind of a challenge that you see. That's a sort of a vicious cycle we have gotten into, unfortunately, in the country. But how do we break this vicious cycle? The way to break this vicious cycle is, go and observe things in the society, right? There are problems in the rural areas, but then we don't even know how farmers, for example, do agriculture. We don't even know what are the water quality issues in rural areas. And if we are not even connected with with these kind of problems that exist, we never will be able to pick them as problems and do research on them. So since we are only focused on picking problems from the libraries, we never tend to do anything which is useful for the society. Therefore, the first way to become an entrepreneur is to identify a problem. How do you identify the problem? You go and immerse yourself in an environment where there is scope for where there is a problem statement, where you would like to actually work and try to identify a problem. You are able to hear me, right? Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's good. Okay, thank you. So therefore, the immersion programs are very important. You need to go and spend time as part of your internship, as part of your whatever program, practice school, whatever program you want to give a name to. You need to go, and if you want to work on a problem related to healthcare, you must stay with the doctors. You should see how the hospitals treat patients and what are the challenges they are facing. Interact with the doctors, interact with the patients, stay in the hospital environment for a period of time, and then pick a right kind of a problem there. You want to work on a farmer's problem, go and stay with farmers, go and interact with these farmers, do a huge kind of a survey on those problems. That is how you can pick the right kind of problems. And that is completely missing in India. When we want to do internship, what do our students, where do our students want to go for internship? They want to go to US, Europe, because these foreign internships are so much of a craze. I mean, what problems you can pick by going to US and doing some internship in another university there? That's not going to work. If you want to solve the problems in India, you better do that by immersing yourself in that environment where the problems are available. And in fact, at IIT Delhi, when I was the director, we started multiple such immersion programs, rural internships for the students. Even the humanities departments can be very effective. They can act as a window to the society, because many humanities and social sciences faculty, they are connected with the grassroots problem, and engineers and scientists talking to humanities faculty can also be an eye-opener to understand what exactly is the situation of society, and what are the farmers' problems. For example, why are so many farmers committing suicide? I think out of that will emerge some very interesting sort of ideas on which you can then pursue a career and work with a faculty member, or work in an industry, or work on your own, and do very different kind of things. At IIT Delhi, and I'm sorry, at BITS Pilani, if you have been following my social media posts, or the social media posts of BITS Pilani, we started a PhD program for this purpose. We started a PhD program where we are saying that, PhD is not necessarily to publish papers. PhD is not necessarily to become a university professor. PhD is essentially to find a solution to a problem. That is what PhD is. So we are now defining PhD completely differently. We are saying that, if you want to solve a problem, right? Because most of these problems, improving productivity in the agriculture is not a BTech level problem. You can build an app and then put the farmers there and do some, eliminate some middlemen, and then, make some portal, and you can build a company on that. But that is still an IT company. It has nothing to do with any technology or anything. It's an aggregator kind of a model. But when I say, you want to improve productivity of the farmers, you need to do soil tests. You need to be able to measure the soil parameters. That will require technologies. And then by measuring the soil parameters, you want to reduce the input cost. Farmers may be overusing fertilizers when they are not even needed. But how do the farmers actually know what fertilizer to use, what quantity to use? They don't have any sensors, and they need to go to an agricultural lab to get those tests. Nobody does that in the country. That whole process is broken because there are so few labs and so many people dependent on them. But can you develop simple low-cost solutions, where you can do those tests in the farm itself, and then you can help the farmer to identify what fertilizer to use in what quantity? By reducing the input cost, you can actually improve the productivity of agriculture, and similarly reduce the water consumption in agriculture, because how much water does the crop actually require? Farmers don't know that. Sometimes there is flood irrigation that is done, while all that the soil requires is maybe some 15% soil moisture, right? But then since farmers don't have access to those technologies, they tend to overuse water, and then water becomes a scarcity. Then the water levels keep going down, which is what has happened in almost every state now. India doesn't have enough water. India has only 4% of water resources of the world, but 18% of the world's population. So I think, and 80% of water consumed in the country is actually consumed in agriculture. Only 20% is used for human consumption. So therefore, if you want to save water, agriculture is the place where you need to save water. But what technologies do we have to actually help farmers to save water? There are hardly any technologies that farmers have access to. These are the real problems. Now, if you want to find a solution to any of these problems I mentioned, you cannot do that with a BTech degree. There's nothing you learn in a BTech, which is a very fundamental, and any first level degree, it doesn't give you enough knowledge to address any of these problems. That will require a PhD, that will require research on some of these problems to develop some of those solutions. And that is what the PhD programs need to become. BITS Pilani has actually shown the way. In all BITS campuses now, we will be having that announcement pretty soon. We are actually telling students that, you can come with your own problem. If you have identified a problem, you come to us, work with a faculty member, use all the resources available in the institute, work on that problem for 2 years, 3 years, develop a solution. That solution becomes your PhD. You get a PhD degree after that. And since you are working with venture capitalists and with the startup founders and with alumni, with corporates while doing PhD, now you would have developed enough contacts and you would have focused on that problem as part of your PhD. In addition to getting your PhD degree, you also start a venture. You also start your own company, using the technologies you developed as part of the PhD program. And then, so you are now a doctor, so and so, but you also are an entrepreneur because you have found that solution, and you will be helped to from all possible ways to start your own venture and commercialize that problem. Or if you don't have a problem, there are many faculty members in the BITS campuses where they are working on problems. They are working on, a lot of them have reached a level, a technology readiness level, which is 4 or 5, right? And they have a proof of concept. Now you can work with them, right? And then you together can start a company and commercialize the technology. So that is what PhD programs need to become eventually. But that is when you generate jobs, right? If you are, 2 of my PhD students have actually done that. Now one of them runs now the nanosniff technologies, which is selling explosive detectors to airports. 11 airports in the country today are using explosive detectors that we developed in our lab, and these explosive detectors are now commercially available. You can buy them on the GEM portal, government e-market portal, and on all using the websites and all that. And many people are actually buying them. And these are run by my ex-PhD students, and they now have hired many more students in the country. And now nanosniff is a company. It's not even a startup anymore, and they are able to survive on the technologies they have developed. But all those technologies came out of their PhD work. PhD works of a few groups of students. The proof of concepts were shown there, and then the nanosniff, as a company, took those proof of concepts, and then they basically commercialized them, improved the TRL level, and now it's a product available all over the world as explosive detectors for the airports and malls and other kind of places. My another set of PhD students have actually started a company in the agriculture space, essentially to do the soil testing, because I realized that that is actually a problem. They now have the world's smallest NPK sensor. They can detect nitrate, phosphate, and potassium, the pH of soil, electrical conductivity of soil, and now they have a soil sense station, and they have weather stations, and they're actually selling these technologies to the farmers. And now they have presence in multiple states, and they're already beginning to export those technologies. And because they did that as part of their PhD work, now since they are running those companies, and they now have recruited more students, now they are able to do very well in creation of jobs and other things. That is what that needs to happen at the national level on a much larger scale. Imagine, a group of students working on such problems, finding solutions, right? And then starting their own enterprises, recruiting more students. I think, that is how you generate jobs in many of these advanced technologies. And then you don't have to only do IT or CSE kind of jobs. You can also work in these companies which are solving, problems for the farmers. Because India is an agrarian society. Over 50% of our population, they are still connected to agriculture. I think that is where the innovation potential is tremendous right now. The same can be applied for healthcare. The same can be applied for security. I think all of these are the problems where there are so many problems available, and they are actually crying for solutions in many of these sectors. But since not many students pursue research in these areas, these problems remain as problems. And then what has happened to farmers in the last 20 years? Nothing has happened. Their income levels are going down, and more farmers are committing suicides. What the governments can do is they can distribute money, but it's all public money. They are distributing it to farmers, for their livelihood and all that. I think that's not the way you will ever be able to solve any of the farmers' problem. Look at the healthcare expenditure. In fact, India, every year, I am told something like 22 million people, that is 2.2 crore people, go below the poverty line because of healthcare expenditure. What happens is, in a rural area, right, somebody in the family falls sick, right? Because when they fall sick, the entire family comes to big cities like Bombay, Delhi for treatment. In the process, 22 million people every year go below the poverty line because of healthcare expenditure. The rural infrastructure for healthcare is almost non-existent. If somebody, in Gurgaon, somebody, 100 kilometers, not even 100 kilometers, somebody 50 kilometers away from Delhi falls sick, right? Has a heart-related problem, you have to come to Delhi only. So if that is the situation in and around Delhi, just imagine the situation in smaller towns, in the interiors of India and all of that. There is hardly any healthcare infrastructure that is existent there. Imagine, you build a biodome, right? You build a kind of a healthcare station in these villages, and when a villager enters these places, you do all the tests that you can do, non-invasively. Right? There are so many technologies available now for non-invasive use for diagnostic purposes, and using all those technologies, connecting these, I call them the biodomes, connecting these biodomes to bigger hospitals and doctors sitting in towns and cities, and then doing a lot of diagnosis of a large number of patients, people in the country, and providing them a preventive, kind of a care, so that before they have a heart attack, if you know that their ECG is not normal, why not provide that first aid to that person, so that you can prevent a heart attack. The person need not wait, till he or she has a heart attack and then rush to Delhi and all of that. I think, such preventive care can easily be done in a web-enabled kind of a way. For that, there are lots of technologies that are required, which you need to integrate into these biodomes, which are all, machine learning, AI kind of technologies you can make use of. I think, these are the kinds of directions that we need to go to, but that will require a lot of research in those areas. Healthcare is a completely open area. In India, hardly any healthcare infrastructure exists beyond our bigger cities and places kind of thing. So I think these are the kind of opportunities for one to do research, right? And out of research, you need to couple that research to innovation. Innovation is always about generating value for research or generating value for knowledge. Research is all about generating knowledge, new knowledge. Innovation is all about generating wealth out of that knowledge. Unless research and innovation goes hand in hand, unless these two, go hand in hand, nothing will happen. If you research and innovation are decoupled, then you keep doing research, keep generating knowledge. But when you need to do innovation, that funnel is missing right now. And as a result, you can only find jobs and, in IT and CSE kind of a sector. Innovation generates jobs. Research doesn't generate jobs. Research only consumes money and generates the knowledge. But innovation generates jobs because it converts that knowledge into wealth. And using that wealth that you are creating, you can hire more people and you can expand companies. The company's valuations go up and it will, keep growing and keep solving more and more problems. I think that is how, research actually needs to be done in the country. And similarly, finding problems with the industry. Every industry will have problems, right? They are dealing with. If you have one product today, 2 years from now, you need a newer kind of a product. And so therefore, that industry academia collaboration is very, very essential for research to become innovation. So that research and innovation coupling can only happen when academia and industry work hand in hand. And unfortunately, in India, that is also missing on a pretty large scale. And industry and academia are again working in silos. As a result, industry looks abroad for technologies and then brings them here, assembles something and sells them. While academia is generating a lot of knowledge, but industry doesn't even look at that knowledge. As a result, neither it's helping neither. Neither the academia is benefiting from that, nor industry is benefiting from that. And we have at BITS Pilani, for example, we announced recently professor of practice positions. We wanted a lot of industry professionals to work with us in the system so that they can work with academics, they can look at all the research that we are doing and then use their expertise in product development, to actually churn out some companies and products and, marketable kind of technologies sort of thing. And so we received a huge response for that. We are making those appointments regularly, creating centers of excellence funded by industries, technology parks, where industries come and set up their research centers on the campuses, organizing industry dates, showcasing our research. This is a 5-year program. I had started at IIT Delhi when I was a director. This is known as faculty innovation and research-driven entrepreneurship. At IIT Delhi, we said that if a faculty member says, he or she wants to start a company out of the research that they have been doing for so many years, institute gives them funding and institute gives them sabbatical, basically leave from their jobs where they can take that funding. They can use that leave that is given to them for 1 year or 2 years, and then convert that research and start a company out of whatever they have worked on. So, and then we started a PhD kind of an incubator. I think these are the things that are required to bring academia and industry together. So this is something very critical for that. And similarly, the strategic agencies, when you are looking at solving problems, right? The ISRO is sending satellites, but there's so much of talent available in the country, in academic institutions, and ISRO, uses academia very effectively for all of their launch programs. The same is true of DRDO, because DRDO works on every technology that is required, for the country's defense. And in all of these, yeah. So DRDO, we also collaborating with academia right now, and so these are the kinds of ways through which you can use the problems that are present for India's strategic kind of requirements and have academia the students and faculty working on them. And then when they graduate, of course, they can be hired by these strategic agencies so that they can help support India's defense requirements and all of that. I think these are the kind of connects that need to expect. So it's all about how do you find problems, right? So if you want to become an entrepreneur, if you want to do research, which will impact people, you need to pick your research problem from one of these other three ways, not necessarily only from library. Once you find the problem, of course, you go to library to understand, what is that people have done, how much of work is already done, what are the kind of approaches people have taken to solve that problem earlier, what issues they have faced. All of that literature review you can do after you identify problem, from one of these other kind of quadrants. So my, simple request is, if you want to become an entrepreneur, if you want to become an innovator, find the problem, through societal observation or through industry kind of a connect, or by working with strategic agencies or industries. And then, you use library to understand the entire problem, the landscape of whatever has been done until that time. And then, devise your own approach, your own strategy, a plan of action, and then, start working on such kind of problems. Eventually, you can create wealth, you can do research. I think that these are what is known as the deep tech entrepreneurship. So we need to now slowly get into areas where the deep technologies are used to solve the problems. And most of these problems I mentioned, whether it is healthcare or security or farmers problem, will actually require deep technologies which are like multidisciplinary, and it requires the deep, multidisciplinary kind of a research in order to solve them. And that you can do by pursuing higher education. After BTech, the only job you can do is, basically some IT and CSC kind of jobs. And I can also tell you, over a period of time, most of those jobs will be taken away by ChatGPT and all of that. ChatGPT can write software and do many things, for which we employ people right now. So those very low level kind of jobs will all be taken away by the AI tools. And so the jobs only which are in the deep technology kind of space will be open in the future. So I think some of you who can, should pursue higher education, should do PhD, work on problems which have a societal relevance, work with institutions, where you can actually convert that solution into a project, into a startup. And then, if once some of you get into those kind of domains, you will create jobs and wealth for the country, and jobs for, many other students, and wealth for the whole nation and for the world. I think, to me, that is something that needs to happen in the country, and the time is ripe for that. And my own examples are plenty. I have at least worked on multiple things, and also one thing which I would like to tell you is the science. We tend to neglect the maths, physics, and chemistry. But I should tell you, these sciences are actually the foundation for engineering. Without science, there is no engineering. If you look at these mobile phones, right, how the mobile phones have advanced, then today you can buy these phones in the market today, all these foldable kind of phones. Behind this phone, the foldable phone, or some of these advanced phones, there are at least a dozen Nobel Prizes. A dozen Nobel Prizes in physics and chemistry have been responsible, for the creation of, what you use as a mobile phone today. And the Nobel Prizes were for display, for wireless technology, for battery, for memory, for processor, for the polymers, for the transistors. I think that is what the Nobel Prizes have been given to. And therefore, science and engineering always goes hand in hand. Instead of becoming a lousy engineer, become a great scientist. If you become a great mathematician, I can tell you, mathematics is the mother of almost all the sciences. Physics, again, is something which is fundamental to nanoelectronics. Everything that we do today, it's all basically physics, and engineers come much later. If aeroplane flies not because of, not because of engineers who have designed it. At the heart of aeroplane is that Bernoulli's equation, that physics, which is what engineers make use of to actually build the entire aeroplane. So therefore, without that science of, without that, fundamental physics that helps to understand the flying, no engineer could have actually built a aeroplane kind of a thing. So therefore, science and engineering are very intricately linked. And if you are a good scientist, you can also be a great engineer, and you can hire good engineers to convert your science into a product or a technology kind of a thing. So therefore, don't neglect any of these areas. Every area is important. And as long as you become good in that, there is enough value addition that you can do to that field. And everything becomes wonderful actually to pursue in the deep technology or the deep science kind of areas. So I'll stop here. But these are the, for example, when somebody asks me what are the 5 technology platforms, every decade you see one new technology platform on the horizon, right? It was IT, before 2000 it was IT. In fact, India now is a IT capital of the world, right? Almost, we export as much IT as Saudi Arabia exports the crude oil. So that is, you can make a one-to-one comparison on that. And it all started with that Y2K problem, the year 2000 problem that the world was facing when the calendar turned 2000. And since until that time, the date format was 2 digits, like 2019 was written as 19. Now, when it became 2000, now that 19 will become 00, nobody knew how to deal with that. And there was a worry that all those computers were programmed, which were programmed with that 19 thing. When the year turns 2000, in the middle of night, they thought that the entire world will collapse. All the banking systems, everything will collapse because, computers won't be able to recognize that 2019 becoming 2000, 1999 becoming 2000. So that 99 will become 00. Nobody, there was a huge crisis, and Indians, started many IT firms to address that Y2K problem. It is known as the Y2K problem, year 2000 problem. And India used that opportunity and became a superpower in the IT services. But after that, it became the biotechnology. India again did very well in the biotechnology space. We are the largest provider of global vaccines and other things. But unfortunately, we are only focusing on the generics, right? And that doesn't require the lot of PhDs and all that. There is not much drug discovery happening in the country. So again, the jobs in the biotechnology sector are not as much as what are available in the IT. The nanotechnology, India is ranked 3rd in the world for nanotechnology. Nano can impact almost every sector, from textiles to electronics to materials to everywhere. Nano will play such a significant role, and we have a lot of knowledge generation happening in the nano sector, but we are not able to translate the technology into wealth. And that's because, again, finding good talent, good PhD students to work in this area is so challenging right now in the country. Many good students drop out after BTech and then take up some IT kind of a job. As a result, by the time it becomes PhD, when you are looking for a good student, it's so difficult to find good PhD students. No institute of any repute in the country today is able to fill up all their PhD positions. And there are not that many, there are more PhD positions than the availability of good quality candidates right now. The same is true of AI/ML kind of technologies. Ask any computer science department, finding a good AI/ML person to do PhD is almost impossible. And I can tell you, I was just speaking with the computer science department in BITS Goa, wonderful people, faculty, but they are not able to find students who wish to do a PhD in the AI/ML areas. And if they don't do that, if everybody does only IT, CSE after BTech, does some coding, there is so much of scope to develop technologies in AI/ML that ChatGPT, with our IT kind of an infrastructure and the kind of market resources we have, India should have developed the ChatGPT. We become the largest consumers of these technologies, but we are not developing them because we are not pursuing higher education in these spaces and not acquiring deep knowledge in any of these areas. As a result, we always become, with our just the BTech kind of degree or the first degrees, we are becoming the world's largest consumers of these technologies. But we are not developing them because we are not gaining a deeper understanding of any of these areas. Same is true with quantum. The future will be completely quantum. It will be quantum communications, quantum computers, quantum cryptography. Everything will move to quantum. But how many people in the country are actually pursuing PhD in the quantum area? Good physics kind of people. First of all, very few people even take physics right now as a first degree option, and many of them continuing for a PhD hardly happens in the country. So again, we will lose the bus when it comes to quantum technology. So this is exactly the situation in the country today. And but the opportunities lie in all of these areas. All of these areas have as much potential to generate jobs as the IT sector. I just hope this mindset changes sooner or later, and more good students pursue higher studies in these areas like biotechnology, nanotechnology, cognitive technology, quantum technology, combine research with innovation, right, and pursue deep tech entrepreneurship and create jobs in these sectors and make India, as big in any of these other sectors as it is in the IT sector. I think with this, I will stop here, and I will be happy to answer some questions.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really a very wonderful talk, and majority of the points are very clear. Sir, I'd like to have a very quick question here, and after that we can have the question from the audience. Can I ask?
Yeah, let me unshare. Okay, now
So like one of the most important point that you have raised here in the your PPT is that like in India somewhere we require that the PhD should be done in a manner that students should go on the field, try to identify the real problem which is at the ground root level, and then try to like think about the solution, and that solution should be their PhD, right? But what do you think, like how many institutes are there in India which is going to accept this type of the solution and the point? Because somewhere everybody like wants to like, because somewhere a trend has been set in India that like professors also want to publish the papers so that their CV is going to be very strong, so that they can be promoted to the professor from the associate and so on. So what is the your opinion upon that?
I think unfortunately that is the fact of life. I mean, our PhD programs are primarily seen as production pathways for university professors, right? You do PhD if you want to become a professor, but that's not really true. If you look at the US particularly, only 10% of PhDs. A lot of echo coming from your side. You need to mute when you're. So particularly when you look at the US situation and all that, less than 10% of PhDs go for academic jobs. 90% of them go on to do work for industries and entrepreneurship and all of that. Many of these like companies like Google, Microsoft, they do as much research as any top university in the world, and many PhDs. For particularly in some of these areas, our main contender for good PhDs is basically Google and Microsoft kind of research. If you have a PhD in that area, they will grab you ahead of a university grabs them. So that is a challenge right now. So that is how the things need to be. So doing PhD is never or should not be to become a university professor. Doing PhD is to go to the depth of a problem and understand the problem thoroughly, right, and then learn how to solve a problem. That is what PhD is all about. And publications is a byproduct of the system. They cannot be the main products of the system. And I think at least I'm hoping that it's not that every student should become an entrepreneur. I'm not saying that, but at least 20% of PhD students. We have 300,000 PhD students, right? Even if 10% of them work on a entrepreneurship kind of a mode, imagine how many new companies would come out in this country, which have technology as a backbone, right? And so that is what that needs to happen now, and time has come for that. Just doing PhD, publish papers, become a faculty member, again produce a few more PhDs, and they are also looking for faculty positions. I think this cycle has continued for too long now and for too many generations. At some point, we need to break that. Our BITS Pilani experiment is basically to break that cycle and then see if we can produce PhD students who can become entrepreneurs. So our goal is to produce at least 100 deep tech entrepreneurs out of that PhD startup track.
Definitely. So thank you so much. So we're like we are open to questions. So if any one of you have any question, feel free to ask your queries. And after that, I have a bunch of the questions which the audience asked in the Google form that we shared. Yeah, fine. So Anjali, you can go ahead.
Hello, sir. Hello, Professor Rao. It was a great session, too much of learning. And I did my PhD from IIT Delhi and then did some postdoc experience outside. And currently working as a computational biologist in industry. So, while in your talk, you did mention about that people go outside and then they come back to India and then problems are not that relevant. But pardon me if I have that limited experience talking to different PhDs in and around world, but we still are not able to break that conventional setup of the mind thought that even in IITs to be absorbed as a good faculty position and then pursue that research, there is still a conventional way, right? You did your PhDs or postdocs with some foreign experience, and then it's not a written rule, but somehow you get preference above other candidates, right? So that is also one reason. Before you joined, there were multiple questions regarding whether we have to do PhD in India or in abroad. That might be the basis of such sort of questions why people have these sort of observations. So from your experience at different IITs and now BITS Pilani, I do understand there might be very changes that are in the process, but might be very slow. One question is this: what is your take on that? Like, we train our PhDs and then we look for somewhat, global exposure is nice that you can get in your PhD also, like doing internships and all. But somehow giving preferences not I'm not against seeing the preferences, but yeah, that's the major question.
No, I understand what you are saying. Unfortunately, it is true. I don't want to deny that. Even when I came back to India in '98. I was in UCLA before, and when I came back, I brought a lot of problems from the US. And because that time I was working with Intel and other companies, I also brought back a lot of samples from the US. And I started working on those same problems. I started working on those same samples. I wrote lots of papers from India, got recognitions, and everything was going fine. I could have spent my rest of life just doing that. Nobody was stopping me. Nobody thought it's inappropriate. Nobody thought it's wrong also. So I could have, continued my entire career with the same problem sets and with the, similar kind of research activity. And there are still many people, I can name many of my colleagues, who have been doing just that. They came back from these countries and they spent their entire career in India in academics, doing the same, working on the same set of problems. At least to me, that realization happened in around 2006, 2007 timeframe. After about, I would say, 8-9 years of working in academia, after I established myself as a researcher and received recognitions and all of that, then I wanted to very consciously look around and see, what can now. I mean, the way I at least introspected myself was, if I wanted to do the same research, I could have done it better by staying back in the US. I need not have come back to India. So if I have come back to India, what's the point in doing exactly the same thing at 1/5 the salary or 1/8 the salary? And then, what fun is that? Is that what I would like to do? So once I started asking those questions, then I started to consciously look for, areas where I can use my expertise, where I'm not, saying that change your area completely kind of way. Because you have a certain background, you have a certain expertise. I wanted to apply it to other kind of fields. And I found that, coming from a semiconductor background, which is my area of specialization, the electron devices and all that, micro nano fabrication, I found that the sensors could be one area where I can, develop technologies for the country, develop IoT nodes and develop technologies for the country. So I very consciously started to focus on sensors research. And then when I wanted to do that, I, then started talking to doctors to find out in the healthcare sector, what sort of, diagnostic requirements are there. Started talking to security specialists, in the security space, what sort of gaps exist, what the country needs to do. And in the farmers, trying to understand why, so many farmers are committing suicide, why our productivity levels are so low. So once I started to look around and then, get out of my comfort zone, I could see a lot of interesting problems. And I wanted to address all of these by developing, solutions, mostly in terms of sensors and sensor technologies and platforms, which is exactly what I've done. So, which aligned with my previous work, but then my subsequent part of work, I have now 2 startups, successful startups. I mean, they are not even, one of them is not even a startup anymore. It's an established company, and other one is doing very well. I think I have no regrets. And at some point, that introspection needs to happen. And it will, sometimes it can happen all on your own, but sometimes it can happen by looking at others, right? So eventually you become what you see. And in many of these, if you see that more and more researchers are working on technologies which have societal relevance, societal impact, and if you see more professors starting companies and becoming successful entrepreneurs, I can tell you, then things will start changing slowly. So somewhere the change needs to begin. I think that the change has begun now. From the time I mentioned that 1998, when I became a professor, a faculty member at IIT Bombay, to now, right? I know that now most of the top researchers in the country have their own startups. In my field, whoever my peers, right? These are all good people, done very well for themselves. They all have a startup now. Even, hardcore physicists in IISc run a startup right now. This was not the case. It was unthinkable, 10 years ago. What is a startup? If you're a physicist, you keep solving physics problems. So nobody at that time even used to think of starting a company being a physicist. But now it's not true. I know many chemistry colleagues of mine who have startups, right? So I think things are changing now, and I hope the change will be even more rapid, and there will be. I think we are in the direction, but it is slow right now. I think once professors change their mindset, the PhD students will change, because my students have taken up entrepreneurship because I took up entrepreneurship. And now when that is what, and looking at what I have done, many others will do so. I think that change has begun right now.
Yeah, thank you so much for this answer. I have just one follow-up question as well. So, one component when many people have ideas, and but because of the funding issues or money issues, we sometimes are not able to have family responsibilities, PhDs, already spending so much of your time into that. But there are multiple grants from the government as well, especially for healthcare and agriculture sector that one can explore. But we sometimes don't have enough, let's say, exposure and idea about such grants. So some sort of training in terms of how one can leverage of these opportunities. Do you think that that can be a right idea also to, just to educate
What you said
people?
is true. I fully again empathize with you on that, because at that age, after PhD you are already 25, 26 kind of a 24 to 26 kind of an age group, and there are pressures from family to take up a job and marriage. Most of things happen at that time. So no, I'm aware of that. So at IIT Delhi, in fact, I did recognize this problem. We started a kind of a program where we said if a PhD student wants to start a company, we said you will receive a fellowship from the institute. So we said you receive a fixed fellowship amount, right, which is most like a postdoc kind of a fellowship. But that postdoc fellowship is until you start a company, not to write more papers, right? Because a postdoc is again looking for a job opportunity somewhere, therefore needs to write more papers. But this postdoc opportunity we created, we called it PhD platform for harnessing deep technologies, a PhD fellowship kind of thing, and that was to actually for the PhD to start a company by receiving the support. We even wanted to do that in our Sonipat campus, which is a residential campus. So because if somebody is getting married, they can still stay there, and it's a residential incubator. And you build your whatever research you have done as part of your PhD, use that fellowship period, right, to convert that research into a prototype. And then the idea was to so therefore the point is a lot of institutional support is required. Yes, a candidate alone will not be able to do that on his or her own, right? Thus, at that time, that institutional support is required. So we from IIT Delhi, I made every attempt to provide that institutional support. But in BITS Pilani now, that is what we are actually doing. We are saying that starting from PhD onwards, right, from the point of choosing a problem to becoming a PhD student, I think we are trying to change that mindset right now. So PhD is not for just to become a professor. PhD can also be to find a solution to a problem and become an entrepreneur. I think that from the beginning, if you are focused on that, then you will work in a certain direction, you will work on a certain problem, and you will work with a different mindset. That is what is required to convert more PhDs into entrepreneurs. And I think institutional support is required to address the problems that you have mentioned. And unfortunately, in this country, it's not so. They are not widely available. Not every institution is doing that. But at least, we have shown the way now from BITS Pilani, and even at IIT Delhi, we had initiated many such programs. Let's hope that other institutions will copy this and, will actually train more and more PhD students to make them become entrepreneurs. So, change has to begin somewhere. Hopefully this will be a trigger point for them.
And sir, any program for this is for the PhD students, but anybody who's not from the BIT associated with the BITS itself would have good idea of good research problem, proof of statement, everything. Do you have any incubation facility for somebody outside the structure?
No. In fact, you should look for technology innovation hubs. Department of Science and Technology has started a beautiful program. It happened during Professor Ashutosh Sharma's time. There are 25 technology innovation hubs created in the country. Each technology, all IITs, BITS Pilani, and IIT Hyderabad. So these are the institutions where you find these technology innovation hubs. They search for those technology innovation hubs. These are all done under the interdisciplinary cyber physical systems, ICPTS. And under that cyber physical program, Government of India has created 25 technology hubs in diverse areas, in diverse institutions. They can fund research plus startups. The problem with most of the funding agencies is they can only fund professors or they can only fund startups. But here they fund you from the point of TRL 3 kind of a level all the way up to it becomes a startup, and then all the way up to you are able to commercialize the product. So that is the solution. Of course, I was involved with that program, and I was also championing that program. I currently chair that national committee which reviews all these 25 hubs. But that is the entire point there. The point there is to have that seamless integration of research and innovation, right? So today there are not many agencies which can do that, and so look out for the technology innovation hubs. They can support your ideas. If you have an idea in the technology space which has a potential to become a company, they can handhold you, they can support you until it actually becomes a startup and commercially viable. So that is a mandate given to all these technology innovation hubs. So you can find one of those nearby and then see how you can, work with them and see how your ideas can be nurtured and incubated, in the technology innovation.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, sir. So we can have a maximum of 5 more minutes, and after that we can end the session. So guys, if any of you want to have any other question, feel free to ask it, because we are already running out of time. Hello. So we have a question here in the chat. So let me read it. How can one take admission PhD, drive BITS Pilani? We have a startup idea, but not
We will
yet.
have a web page for that. We will announce that pretty soon. So we are currently generating funding from corporates and VCs, because we don't want this to be, just funded academically. That's not the purpose of it. We want a corporate or a VC to be involved from the beginning. So we are now talking to multiple VCs and corporates. So once we have, certain number of fellowships, we will announce that. You can, expect to hear from us in the next few weeks' time.
Definitely, sir.
Let's to go now, unfortunately.
Yeah, definitely, sir. We would like to end with this. So it was really nice and great having you here, and I'm really grateful to you, sir. You took out of your precious time and came here. So I would like to all of you to say that you can connect with him over the LinkedIn and follow sir, because he keep on writing the different columns for the different newspapers as well and sharing ideas. And thanks all of you for joining the session. And I'll be sharing the recording over the YouTube channel as well, so you can follow us over there. Thank you so much for giving your time.
I'm sorry for all the hiccups, because of the internet connectivity here, but I hope it was useful. And please feel free to connect with me. I will be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Thanks, Rashmi ma'am.
Thank you.